Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another edition of Let's Talk Football, where Andy Herman dives deep into my football psyche and tries to ease my anxiety. Good luck this week, Andy. It's going to take some doing. How you doing,
You
brother?
have the wrong person. You have the wrong person then. I don't know if I'm
Yeah. Well,
gonna ease anything.
Let's start it right out of the gate. Let's go with a bang. You had some words for Joe Barry after that game. I got to admit, I've gotten to a point in my life, Andy, where I'm very upset during the game, and I maybe marinate in those upset feelings for an hour or two afterwards. It does affect my mood. I'm still a rabid Packers fan. It lingers for the week. I'm not going to say I'm completely over the loss, but I have an ability to just kind of march on at this point because I know where they're at in the big picture. But I got to admit, waking up this morning and seeing your cut-ups of Joe Barry's defense just giving away free yardage got me right back to being upset. I don't know what else to say at this point other than it's designed this way, the defense they're running. And if you don't have the personnel on hand, you should probably think about switching, but they don't and they won't. So I don't know what else to say anymore.
It feels at times like I'm being worked, or like I'm just missing like a major detail of, and I get what they're trying to accomplish. We've been over it all before, not trying to give up explosive plays, make them go the length of the field, death by 1,000 paper cuts, whatever we want to define it as. There has to be something that you can do during that time period to do a better job of getting off the field on third downs, getting to third downs, finding a way to get sacks and turnovers. It can't just be we're going to hope that they screw up. And that's sometimes what it feels like. And you've got these situations personally, and I mentioned it the day before, I would have gone in being like, I think I kind of want to make Kenny Pickett try to beat me in this game. And I know that that's
whoa, young man, sir, Andy Herman, stop making sense. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And it blows my mind that we come out there those first couple drives where Pittsburgh just marches right down the field with the too high safety shell that has been the bane of my existence against a quarterback who has shown, if anything, he can't complete a pass in the first half against most NFL defenses. But no, Joe Barry's protecting against that deep shot to a Pickett. I don't know who. I don't know. But the frustration is that you and I know this. I know this going in that, the best way to go about beating this team, especially early in games, is to make the quarterback beat you. Yet they're playing a style of defense which would have you believe that, well, we've got to make sure that we got to keep a lid on this explosive passing game from Pittsburgh, which just is a complete fabrication. That's my kind of complete short circuiting of my brain, because I just don't understand keeping that approach and not going at least a little bit opponent specific right out of the gate.
You nailed it, right? You have to have a game plan for a specific opponent. I get having a theme or a vision for what you want your defense to be. You still have to play the opponent that's across from you. And it feels like at times they're playing against like the ghost, like they're planning for worst case scenario. And you're thinking like, oh, we got to make sure that it's like you're playing against Tom Brady, Joe Montana, Aaron Rodgers, whoever you want to put in that conversation every single week. And at some point, you've got to let your corners do their job on the outside. And I get you're down Jair, you're down Stokes, Razul is gone. I understand that it's Valentine and the island of misfit corners at times, but you've got to figure out a way to make it so that they can go out and do their job. And you know what? If you give up an explosive, tip your cap to Kenny Pickett. Good job, Kenny
Somebody
Pickett.
beat you. Exactly. Let him compete.
Exactly. And instead you're just giving up the 7, 8, 9 yard runs, and you're putting defenders in positions where they can't be successful. And I can only imagine as a defender in the meeting rooms and in the game plan rooms, how that must feel. Like there's a play I posted where Devondre Campbell has to cover 2 huge gaps. And it's like, he can't be right. He goes right, the running back goes left. He goes left, the running back goes right. And you're just like, I don't know what you do in some of those situations. And that's what's frustrating to watch.
What's fascinating too is to your point about, I can't only imagine knowing, and I think Mike Wall brought this up a couple of weeks ago, where you're going out on the field, you're lining up pre-snap, especially in some of these red zone looks, where you just got to know as a defender, we're just going to get rolled here. Like, when you're playing continuously with 2 down linemen and running out all those safeties and linebackers, expecting to stop somebody who you got to think is sitting there at the line of scrimmage going, we're just going to fire off the ball. You guys ready? Like, that's so disheartening. It is beyond disheartening for us as fans to watch it, but I can't imagine. Like, imagine you're Wyatt and Clark, and here comes the double team.
Yep.
And like you can fight it. Sure, you gotta want to fight through it, but it's coming down after down after down without anything changing. That's a tough way to live.
There's another play in this one where, and again, it's a 3rd and 1, and they're kind of pinching down inside. I don't know if they're expecting the QB sneak. It didn't really have the feel of like a whatever lame cliche name we want to give it this week.
Right.
But they toss it outside, and it's literally the offensive tackle versus Jonathan Owens. And it's just like, if you're Jonathan Owens, you've got a 305-pound offensive tackle. It's like, what do you want him to do in those situations? It's hard to watch at times. Like I said,
it's funny you brought that up. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but is that play in the second half of the game? Do you know off the top of your head?
I've watched so many bad run plays today.
I know, the game. They all kind of blend together, right?
They all blend together.
Because there was a moment where I called this out on Watch Party because, okay, you come out in the first half, right, and they'd run all over you, and now you go into half, and you think, we've got to make an adjustment. And I kind of made fun of it during Watch Party because it's an obvious adjustment. But they made it. They made an adjustment where coming out the gate in the second half, they started dropping a safety down into the box. Now, look, that's not rocket science, right? That's kind of football 101. You're going to add a defender into the mix. That doesn't solve it, right? But it gives you another body. But then there's a play where I'm like, now we have an offensive lineman getting into the grill of Jonathan Owens. This can't be your solve. You know what I mean? Like,
I totally agree.
Things you can do with like blitzing from depth or even just run blitzing in general, but they don't seem to want to do any of that. It's driving me insane, Andy.
To your point, though, like at least when they had 7 in the box, even if it was a safety, it looked a whole heck of a lot better than it did when they had 6 or even at times
that quarterback.
I know.
Like, what are we? Why? Oh. Andy,
please pause for a moment while Aaron and I take a moment to recover.
Completely short circuit. All right, okay, we're gonna. I'm not gonna beat this into the ground any more than we already have because I know we have because we've talked about it all season. But just needed to get it off my chest right off the gate. But let's flip over to the somewhat fun side of the ball. Let's talk about. Oh, wait, actually, before we do, let me make one last point.
Yep.
To your point regarding, okay, yes, they had Valentine and Ballantyne out there. Yes, at points in that game, especially in the second half, when they're getting a little more desperate, they need those stops, so they break their shell. They do give up some stuff. But I also loved how Ballantyne battled. Competed. Especially after, I think it was the second to last drive, he gives up a pretty significant gain up the right sideline. But he comes back after that and keeps after it and has a big pass breakup on 3rd down. Like, that's the experience I want these guys to get. Like, we're talking so much this season about the wide receivers and the tight ends and how young they are and have to grow together. Well, guess what? Especially after you traded Rasul and Jair now is pretty much week to week about whether we're going to get him out there or not. Let these young guys go out and compete and get the experience. Those banked reps are only going to help long term. Why are we pussyfooting around with, we got to play, this really too high shell. Make sure we keep it all in front of us. No, let these young guys get baptism by fire right now. And I think we saw a little bit of that in the second half.
Amen. First of all, and if you all of a sudden Ballantyne can't hang and they're getting beat down the field by Kenny Pickett, again, A, tip your cap, and B, then make that adjustment and say, all right, we tried to be a bit more aggressive. We got beat on the outside. We're gonna have to try something different at this point, and then go about it that way. But yeah, I'm totally with you.
On the offensive side, it's funny because I know a lot of the narrative right now is around coming off that game is the frustrations around Jordan Love and Christian Watson, which we will get to. But I want to lead with what I thought was the surprise of the game, which is how well the offensive line held up in pass protection. I don't think they were, I could write any letters home to mom and pa about what they did in the run game. But I thought I was, for one, Andy, I was shocked how well Rasheed Walker in particular, but really almost to a guy, how well they held up. And yes, certainly there are moments for each guy, all 5 of them, where you would like it back, you would like better technique, maybe a play over, what have you. But on the whole, man, I really thought they were going to get worked a lot more than they did, especially outside. But man, they held up well to the point where Jordan Love at times could go to his third read, get to the check down, say no to the check down, keep searching for somebody. I was pleasantly surprised by the work up front, especially on the road in that environment, as loud as it can get. That's really good work from the group up front.
Yeah, we're looking for signs of progress, right? And you go back to the Raiders game with a Max Crosby level player, and he just entirely wrecks the game. Aiden Hutchinson, along with that Lions defensive front, they completely wrecked the game. And this time you've got not only TJ Watt, but you've got Highsmith on the other side, and a pretty darn good defensive interior for Pittsburgh as well. First and foremost, I thought Matt had a really good game plan. They did a lot of chipping on those edge rushers, helping out when needed on some big plays. But to your point, I thought especially Zach Tom one-on-one with TJ Watt. Watt got his wins, but Zach Tom got his as well, which was awesome to see. Man, that guy's had, again, some Max Crosby, some Aiden Hutchinson, some TJ Watts, and he just continues to play well week in and week out. I thought Elton Jenkins had his third consecutive awesome week of football, which
Elton's
he's looking
back,
like Elton
man.
again.
Elton is back. Yeah, no doubt.
It's so funny because you can tell once he gets into his rhythm and just starts playing, and it's almost just like set it and forget it. You don't have to worry about Elton anymore. And we're getting very, very close to that point, which is so fun to watch and desperately needed up front. And then, there's ups and downs for Myers and Runyon and Walker as well. But you also saw, I thought, signs of progress from all of them. And you mentioned the running game. Obviously not an ideal game, but that play to Dylan, where Dylan gets the 40-plus yard run.
40-yarder, yeah.
Perfectly executed.
That's
and
a run that, tape, the one kind
exactly.
of moment of that whole game. But yeah, 100%.
But even still, like that's one that I don't think 2-3 weeks ago they execute with any level of expertise that they did on that specific play. So you're at least seeing some signs. And I thought it was a carryover from the Rams game and something that, again, definitely left me optimistic going into the rest of the season.
Hell, you could almost say it's a carry on from it's an improvement from earlier in the game. What's so funny about that Dylan run is literally, I think it's the first drive with Jones as the ball carrier where they run maybe not the same play, but it's definitely the same action where they pull both of those guys from right to left and they get blown up in the back. Running in particular gets kind of set back to the backfield. It blows up Jones's run, but man, they run again. They stuck with it and they absolutely nailed it on that Dylan run. Working inside out, going to the wide receivers, for my eyes, which aren't worth a whole lot, but Jaden Reed is becoming a lead dog here. I love Wicks. I think, Romeo Dobbs is really probably the most consistent guy down in and down out. But man, Jaden Reed, I love watching this kid start to blossom because not just, and I know a lot of people, for good reason, will point to the touchdown catch, which was amazing, awesome, what have you. But there's a play, I think it's on a drive that ends in a field goal, unfortunately, but where he takes a short pass and just
a bubble,
is a physical presence and gains 6 or 7 yards when it should have gained 1. That's a dog mentality, and that's something that you love to see. And that's, for me, probably one of the more exciting plays of the game because, yes, get him the ball. Let him go to work. He's such a physical specimen, an explosive player, a big play waiting to happen. I'm so high on this kid right now.
Yeah, loved it. You literally took the words out of my mouth because as soon as you said Jaden Reed, exactly what's going through my mind is everyone's going to see the awesome touchdown. That's great. But the little bubble that goes kind of behind him and he catches and then he kind of fights for every single yard and reaches the ball out to get the first down on that play. Those are the little things that you're starting to see from Jaden Reed that are super, super exciting. Obviously the touchdown play, he goes up. And, it's not insanely contested at the catch point, but it gets contested at the end. And we've seen a little bit of issue with that. That's what he showed in college over and over. He played so much bigger than his size in college. I think we're starting to see that. We always it's the cliche, the game slows down or whatever. But there were points in this game where you could be you can start seeing the game slow down for Jaden Reed. And that is super exciting. I do really think Wicks and Reed are going to develop into two really, really nice wide receivers for this offense. And we're kind of seeing it happen before our eyes right now.
Totally agree. And then, of course, that segues perfectly into the topic of the day, at least if you're looking anywhere on Twitter or anywhere online, which is Christian Watson and the frustrations continual frustrations around just a lack of connection between him and Jordan Love, or the seeming lack of connection. What's interesting to me is like, we know they can create some of these big plays, touchdowns, what have you. We've seen them do it. You and I out there every day in the summer when they're,
Yep.
roasting on that sideline at Ray Nitschke Field. We've seen them do it, in lots of different ways. But right now it feels like, yes, it's being forced a little bit, and that's not to say that the play can't be made. That's not to say the play won't be made at some point in the future. But I know Matt talked about, wanting that throw to probably go someplace else on what ends up being the tip drill interception. But I don't kill either guy for that play. Like,
Same.
Jordan's trying to make it happen. Would you like it out a little bit further? Sure. I think, the defense gets paid too, and I think he makes a great play on the ball. But I like, could Watson fight a little bit more for it? Maybe, depending on, positioning, what have you. But man, I don't kill anybody for that. And I certainly don't kill anybody for that final interception, which is like, you got 3 seconds. They're all lined up on the fucking goal line. Like, you're trying to go make a play, right? Neither of those kill me. But it does feel like, now all of that said, it does feel like, okay, there's a point where, okay, we need a play. I'm going to Christian Watson, as opposed to there's a lot of these other guys who are starting to make plays for Jordan Love. Feels like they got to start getting in the mix and on some of these got to have it situations.
Here's how I would put it. If Christian Watson was having a really great season up to this point, we're not even talking about Christian Watson in this game. Like, right. He has the drop. He has a couple nice catches early that were nice. Again, has the drop. The contested one, so be it. But like I said, if he's having a great year up to this point, you're like, oh, it's a contested one. The corner made a great play, nothing to it. And again, there's nothing certainly Christian could have done on the last play. And that's just a no man's land situation anyway, where you've got like a 0.001 chance of success. But I do think on the whole for the season, partly due to injuries and him not playing, and partly due to him coming back and I think trying to get reintegrated into this offense, there just hasn't been that rhythm and timing there with Jordan and with Christian. Sometimes it's been on Jordan, like last week. Christian Watson's flying open down the field.
Got the guy beat. Yep.
Jordan underthrows it.
Totally.
And again, maybe he could come back, whatever. But like, those are things that if just everything is a little bit more smooth and operating with a little bit more consistency, again, we're probably not even having to have these conversations. But on the whole, when Christian has been targeted, it hasn't gone according to plan this season. And that's why one of the things that I would like to see, and I think Christian can get better. I talk about all the time where I think wide receiver, especially in this day and age, is a skill position it's an artist position. You have to be super skillful with it. And it's still awesome to be 6'4" and run a 4.3 40 and have all of that raw talent. That certainly helps, but there is an artistry to it. And I don't think he's gotten quite to that point yet. And we've seen that some of the 50-50 balls are more like 10-90 balls, and they're just not coming up with them. So let's figure out a way that we can maybe just generate some stuff for this guy, whether it be end arounds, reverses, jet sweeps, tosses, put him in the backfield. I don't care what you need to do. He still needs the ball in his hands because he's one of those rare players on the team that you get the ball in his hands and at any moment he does have the ability to take it to the house. It's just you're having a huge issue getting the ball in his hands right now. So I think that's on Matt. I think that's on Jordan. I think that's on Christian. I think everyone just needs to be a little bit better. But I think we're probably in lockstep of like, I am very, very far away from like being like, all right, I'm out on Christian Watson or anything 100%. Like that. Like, let's let this play out just a little bit longer. He's far too talented. They're going to get this figured out at some point.
What kills me is the discourse I see where people are like, they need a true number one, which, okay, fine. Let's say they do. And like, okay, fine. They need a true number one. That's great. I don't care what you call any of these guys. Like, you can call them linebacker 7. I don't care. Like, I just want 5 eligibles on every play who are doing everything they can to get open within the framework of the offense. And the part I love is you really don't know. You have to pick your poison as a defensive coordinator. Okay, do I start rolling to one guy because I got these other guys who are going to hurt me, whether it's any of the receivers that we just mentioned or even Luke Musgrave, who I thought had another nice game, although I'd love to see him be able to keep his legs one of these times. I mean, on any of these catches. But I think that I don't mind that,
Yeah, I'm totally with you. And also of any fan base, I don't understand how we forget so easily. How many of the Packers' dominant wide receivers over the past 2 decades were a number one by their second year? Not Cobb, not Nelson, not Jones, not Driver, not Freeman. not like maybe
Any of
Jennings
them.
was getting in that close range.
Jennings
Maybe
got
a year
Jennings is
two.
the one guy who came like literally by the coaching staff's admission was the number like his rookie year. Remember back in the day, they didn't work anybody on all of the receiver
Yep,
positions like at all. And Jennings came in and was fed all three
right away.
positions right out of the gate. He's the first guy and the only guy during Mike's entire time in Green Bay that they did that to because they knew he was so talented and they
Yeah,
knew he like needed to be involved at that level right away. But
but he's
outside of
been the
that,
exception. Yeah. Adams
exactly.
certainly not. Look at Adams year two. We
Nope.
talk about that all the time. Like, if any
Yep.
fan base that should know that, hey, this might take a hot second for these guys to settle down.
Look
I'm
at,
not
I mean,
convinced.
look,
Oh, go
I
ahead.
mean, Jordy Nelson, James Jones, all these guys who had drop issues earlier in
Yeah,
their career. And it's like, oh, Christian Watson had a drop. You know, kidding. Yes.
it can
Guys
happen.
drop the football. It happens. It's just a question of being patient. And I just feel
Yep.
like there's zero patience with anything regarding the Green Bay Packers, but especially when it comes to Christian Watson. That's driving me a little insane right now.
I'm with you.
Yeah, you mentioned Matt there, and I'm glad you did because it reminded me. I wanted to ask you about one particular sequence in this game concerning one young Matt LaFleur, which was the end of the first half,
Yeah.
where they're a little backed up, but they've got time on the clock, about a minute and a half, I want to say, maybe a little less. 2 timeouts. It's first down. They run a swing pass. Got Jones in orbit motion, I believe, behind the quarterback, and run it out to him. And now, got to give credit or lack of credit where it's due. Romeo Dobbs has a horrible block attempt. And the corner comes up and tackles Jones for a 5-yard loss. So now it's 2nd and 15. You still got plenty of time. 2 timeouts in your pocket. And Matt LaFleur basically gives up. He hands it off to Jones, and then legit, I think, just heads to the locker room. That bugged the holy shit out of me. Like, I understand that you don't want anything bad to happen, right?
Yep.
How many times have we seen the end of halves where you're trying to press and make something happen and disaster strikes, whether it's, who knows, an interception down the field or even worse, like a strip sack fumble. I get it. You're guarding against disaster. But then, after the game, Matt's up there at the podium saying our message to the guy was to compete for 4 quarters. Well, are you competing when you just pack it in with 2 timeouts and a bunch of time left on the clock during the like? I don't know, man. It's just that was a rough moment for me. And I love Matt. I think he's a good coach. I think he's right for Green Bay. I think he's doing a good job despite
Yep.
all the fucking noise outside the building. I think he's doing a good job with bringing this young team along. But man, I thought that was a bad look. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being a nitpick, but I hated that. I hated it.
It's rare that you and I are a little bit off on the same
On
thing.
opposite
I go in the
ends,
opposite direction on this one a little bit. So a couple things. I think the first down play, it ruined everything. I think
Yep.
Matt wholeheartedly
Big time.
wanted to go and start moving the ball down the field and get into scoring range. And when you have a first down play that goes for -5 and you're immediately in 2nd 15, this offense is not showing a propensity to get out of 2nd and 15 situations.
I'll only point out they picked up a 3rd and 16 earlier in the game, sir.
On a touchdown, by the way. But yes,
I know.
totally fair.
I'm
Totally
being
fair.
a bit facetious. I get
No, I totally get you though. But I do. If there's anything that I wish is if you're going to come back with that inside run to Jones, do it a little bit quicker because Jones has the ability to pick up 13, 14, 15 yards on that play. And if he does, then you still have the opportunity to go and actually do something, right? And if not, the clock's going to run. Maybe they use one of their timeouts. It's not the end of the world. You're fine. But that's maybe the one thing I would have gone with. I do think when you're back at your own 15-yard line and it's 2nd 15, there's under a minute left. The odds that Pittsburgh scores in that scenario, I almost feel is a little bit higher than Green Bay scoring in that scenario. So I don't hate it. I understand it. I get the competing part wholeheartedly. I would have run Jones a little bit earlier to see if he could have done something with that and maybe get you in a 3rd and manageable to still be able to go out and try to get points. But of all the things that I've seen in this game that I think could use some improvement, that wasn't, I guess, necessarily high on my list. I'll put it that way.
That's why I saved it to the end of the program.
Very true. Very true.
It's not, I'm not coming out the gate with it, but it just bugs me a little bit, especially when you're talking about. Here's my thing too: the framework of the season and of this team. Like these are young guys, right? And we're talking so much about the youth in this team, the situation. Here's a great opportunity for them to go and do something, overcome something. Like put them in the fire, man. We talked about it with the defense. Like put them in. They're in the fire. Let them go, man. Let them make a play. Again, and you've been incrementally better as these weeks have gone on. on the offensive side of the ball in general. Like these get back on track situations that you mentioned, 2nd and 15. Yeah, they're tough, man, but they've been better these last couple weeks. It's just, yeah, I don't know, man. And look, I know I'm an old curmudgeon about this because Corey yells at me about this all the time. So I understand that I'm in the minority here. That's
here's where I think there can be a disconnect, and I think this is where maybe just everyone in Green Bay, in the like from GM to president to head coach, everyone can maybe just get on the same page. Because if you're a head coach, right, and you're not sure if like, hey, if we lose these next 4 or 5 games, am I still going to be employed? If I'm a defensive coordinator and my defense doesn't play better, am I still going to be employed? Like when you start feeling those sort of things, you don't necessarily have the same ability to be like, hey, we know we have young guys. Let's put them in some crazy situations just to see how they respond. They're thinking about, I got to get a freaking win on Sunday, or like the heat is going to continue to turn up. Now, if Mark Murphy goes to Matt and Brian and everyone and says, hey, you have carte blanche. We understand where the season is going. We would rather you guys just develop these players and put them in the tough situations to go out and do so, then by all means. But if you're a head coach and you don't know that you have that security and you desperately need a win, that changes your calculus on a little bit of that stuff. And if I'm Matt, I'm probably doing everything I can to get that. They're obviously trying to win no matter what anyway, but you get my point.
Of course. Yeah, no, I mean, literally no one is saying no, they're not trying to win. Like, let's be crystal clear here. But yeah, I agree. And you're totally right. And without knowing any of that behind the scenes, it's hard to say, right?
Yep.
It's just, I'm an old man. That's what that boils down to, essentially. Andy, I really appreciate the time as always. Make sure you're checking out Pack a Day and all the other great stuff Andy does to cover the Packers. Andy, thank you so much.
Appreciate it, man.